thing that came to mind was Loic, and he mentioned, I don't think he was that comfortable in the conditions. He can't get that bike set up optimally on a track like that anyway. So it was damage control for him, and he kind of knew it. He said it's a championship ride, not a race-winning ride. But what stood out for you? What are some notables? And you were talking to a lot of the riders, so you'd give us some nice inside scoops.
Well, I think a lot of it came down to probably the mindset of the rider as well. Going into the start gate, like even if it was foggy and cloudy and wet, or like wetter than they expected, probably about the first rider that really made sense of it was Ocean O'Callaghan. And he was like fair way towards the end, but before that, there was like probably 10 or 15 odd riders that just struggled to do anything with it. And I think a lot of that, maybe they slid in those first corners and then they lost the confidence. If you've got any slight lack of confidence, you're not going to ride the Black Snake very well. And then you could see, even watching quite often, a lot of the guys were locking up their back wheel quite often. And then from Ocean to Troy, they started to make sense of it. And like Troy just floated. I don't know how he did it, but he was still in pretty wet conditions and he just floated the whole way down. And his braking was like so on point. He just wasn't braking on the roots and he was floating over the roots. He said even sometimes he was way offline, but he just made it work. And I think that sort of mindset and confidence to be able to ride in those conditions is like makes the biggest difference. I think, yeah, you can do what you want with your bike setup, but at the end of the day, that track you need a lot of confidence to ride it well. And then they actually changed some sections where I don't know if you saw that real hairpin gnarly enduro corner that everyone was talking about pretty much all week. And that made it so much harder than the straight line that was through the rocks before. So they tried to slow the track down, but it actually made it way harder. And it's like, I have full respect for any of the girls that rode that section, because like even as a guy riding it at the speed, it was hard to go over that crest and into that next section. So like you needed speed, but you had to do that slow corner first. And it was just so technical. Like it was something else, like not often you're just trying to survive your practice runs, but that was a World Cup where you were, No, we haven't had something like that for a long time.
No, we haven't. I mean, even your brother decided to sit it out. He's got other focuses this year, and that just shows you how gnarly the track is in those conditions. And I think you said an interesting thing there, like people that were good with their braking, people that sort of methodical. I've got composed in half a dozen riders here, and they were the riders that did well. They were the riders that did well. Even Amaury Perron was composed. Yes, you hear Amaury Perron winning a race by almost 5 seconds. Composed doesn't come to mind quite like you would with someone like Loic Bruni, but Troy was composed. Dak was the first one to be like, wow, that is so methodical. It looked like he hit most of his marks, looked like he was really early on the braking. It looked like he was not trying much, and then it just showed in the times. So in those conditions, you could easily override, and like EC says, like if you slip once, that maybe breaks your confidence, and there's no let up there. So like a mistake on a route section compounds for 200 foot there, especially if you get unclipped or something like that. In other tracks, it's like 3 turns. You're like, okay, I messed 3 turns up. I'm clipped back in. I know I can attack this section harder than I kind of have comfortable to do. But there, I mean, I think the knock-on effect is so huge. And that's why we see the time gaps we do. If you get it right, and you have the skill, and you have the composure, and you're fit, you can literally smoke the field. We've seen it before with Aaron Gwynn, did it in the dry. Sam Hill back in the day was up at the split, and now we saw it again.